And I'm doing it exactly like Trump. Let me summarize. Dr. Venu gave a very high level of the major challenges facing us. Demographics, people, migration, very complex problem. Technology, very complex problem. In fact, most of us don't understand it, don't know about it. And third, climate change. These three issues affect Penang, affect Georgetown. If climate change warms up, the water level rises, we have a serious problem. If we don't have somehow some solutions to solve the issues that we have, we cannot be livable and cannot be happy. And demographics is all about people. So what everyone here is talking about, not necessarily about a university, but about change. And one thing I know about Penang people do not like status quo. And it is because Penang people think out of the box and don't like the status quo, they want change. But how do you get the change? Now, if you listen very carefully to all these experts, they will tell you this. Every expert will tell you, if you give me more money, if you give me more power, I'll solve the problem for you. Nonsense. Because it cannot be solved in silos. It cannot be solved by just one department, one agency. It needs to be solved by all of us. We have to solve a problem that faces us as a community, So how do we get there? Right? So it's not an economic problem, it's not a technological problem, it's not a demographic problem, it's a political problem. But I'm not trying to bring politics into it, but just want to get you to understand this is about a people issue. And how do we get on the same page? Right? How do we understand each other so we can build the commonality as a community to work together to solve these issues? And the university is a very good platform to get this done. Now, Mr. Mayor has mentioned this. Ultimately, it's about people. It's about talent. And what we want to make sure that we get the talent. Hello, Penang people are very talented. Some of the top hospitals in somewhere very near us, we know. Some of the best accountants north of us. Some of the best, professors, scientists, etc. around the world, Penang trained. Why? Because Penang is the earliest schools. So getting these people to work together and hopefully use the universities as a platform, I think Dr. Sharon Ahmad is to be commended for leading USM to its great heights. And now we need to use the universities within Penang to help we all know this, Penang is the second Silicon Valley, in Asia. But we had some big problems because some of them left us, right? And we have to be realistic about this. So now we come to the most important part, we've got to listen to you. Questions, please. We have about 15 minutes. We want to hear from you because we will need to learn. Yes, sir.
I would like to hear your opinion about my observation that universities, at least in many parts of the world, have become much more commercialized or commercial over the last 20, 30 years. And what that impact might be on its role in a digital disrupted age. And also the fact that as technology is changing and changing more rapidly, often actually not with universities leading the charge, but industry leading the charge. How do we manage to be able to attract the best and the brightest when, let's be fair, certainly in this part of Malaysia, I think university salaries are pretty crabby. How do we able to attract the best and the brightest when the old saying goes, you know, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys?
Thanks for the question. I can only speak to experience in the UK on that. I'm deeply shocked at the change in universities there and the imposition of student fees with expected very high interest rates and return 6.3%. The commercialisation of the evidence for commercialisation is that all of the universities in the UK are now charging the same amount, whatever their quality, per student. They're charging up to the maximum. And the sort of personal thing, the pensions of the teachers in the university were under the custody of the vice-chancellors. Bad investments were made, and the pension fund, which was previously rock solid. So I think it's a bad thing, the commercialisation of universities. I think the tendency to put teachers on adjunct status, on sort of shorter term status rather than career status, again is a sign of bad effect of the commercialisation. So I hope that answers the question for the UK, but I think probably applies elsewhere.
What was that?
Sure. Second question is on the how to attract the best and the brightest.
On the what?
On the best and the brightest. He's thinking about how to attract talent. That's the second question.
I intended to address the first part, but that's okay. That's the how to attract the best and the brightest is to offer something, to make them an offer they cannot refuse. And that depends very much on the what you can offer them. It also depends on the people that are actually looking for an education. It's one thing that is you will not be able to compete with the Stanfords in terms of bright people they attract, but not simply because Stanford is so big and it has so much to offer, but the Open University here has the setting which is unique in the world, and you can attract them on the basis of that uniqueness. I can't go into much more specifics because I do not know enough of the university, but that would be my general answer. Make yourself very specific and give them an offer they cannot refuse.
Okay, it's such a difficult question, I thought I'd set it out. But it's also such a challenging question. In the assimilation of the university to corporate profit seeking happened in my lifetime. I mean, when I was in college, which was at Caltech, life was around the aesthetics of curiosity and the pleasure of investigating things. By the time I left, it had already shifted to take quantum mechanics and solve these equations. Don't ask questions about what it explains. Just do it. And it's tragic. I think it should say, hey, we've got to rethink this basic model, whether it's taking down the trees in the forest or taking the money out of the universities or the pension funds. It's ubiquitous. I mean, walking around the world with a capitalist is a lot of fun. What they do is they look at everything and say, what's that cost? What can I sell for that? Right? And it's just not working for us as a society. It's broken. It's so badly broken that it's killing us. And we've got to do something different. And we don't know what it is.
Aside from the point that that universities are training people for jobs that no longer exist, what is the nature? What other disruptions are there? What is the nature of the disruption caused by this digital age, to the way we understand the role of universities and how they function? I think many of you spoke to generic problems in education and in sharing knowledge and management. but I'm looking for some specificity as it comes to the digital era. You know, aside from the fact that jobs will be gone. Maybe shedding light on some of the, some of these darker issues with the quality of information that's flowing around the web, fake news, all that, and I'm not suggesting censorship, but in the old school, the old way, the universities and the professions have a way of controlling data and evidence and how it's presented. Now, of course, it's free flow, free for all. So I thought there would be some kind of allusion to that. So appreciate if you can tell me more about the nature of the disruption and what can be done about it. Thank you.
Okay, I see. You're hoping for a nice, neat answer within 5 minutes. In fact, the board has spent the whole morning together with the staff of the university, very much talking about that. One way to think about it is that it is highly disruptive. It is said that the present, for example, the present manufacturing and companies out there, those who can't modernize will probably just disappear within the next 5-10 years. Already some are disappearing. If you can't change your model to adapt to the new digital age, you're in trouble. And some of the ones are just surviving. Even BBC, for example, tried to digitize and failed to do it properly and just brush it aside, but it will come back to haunt them. So I won't, because I'm not an industrialist, I just read about it. Now coming back to what's relevant here about universities, and I said about that yesterday when I recorded it for the web. We think that our children are very smart because at age 2 or 3 they can swipe left, swipe right. That is not smart. I mean, that's just the brain adapting to do things that it's exposed to early. Now, there are two arguments, and I tend to be an optimist, but I would say that the downside is that maybe the next generation coming through already have rather shallow thinking because they want everything quick. Everything has come quick, and therefore they are not that good at slowing down to do what we call slow thinking in the deeper parts of the brain. There is evidence of that. There are some psychologists who try to salvage the situation by saying, oh, well, maybe these kids will be very clever, the brain's already adapting to the future age. Well, I think that's depending a lot on the brain to adapt. So I think the role of the university here, and we touched on that this morning definitely, to say that yes, they have access to an enormous amount of information, all free. Why do they even need to come at all? The answer is obvious. They do need guidance. They do need to learn in order to explore. Maybe they will find the answer, but we will show them a quicker way to get there. And also, they will then get a sense of community as well, which is, at the end of the day, I think working life and whole life education is about teaching them to think for themselves, to adapt to further challenges. Believe me, we haven't seen the evolution yet, in fact. So therefore, the university's role is to adapt itself, to use the technology rather than be afraid of it, and use it to its best advantage to teach generation after generation how to make best use of it for the community and for the individual.
But I think you want a soundbite. Let me give you 2 soundbites. I think it's a very, very pointed question. Are we answering this question? 2 soundbites. 40% of Silicon Valley hires did not finish their degree. University, they're not even hiring people who have finished the degree. They ask the guy, what project did you work on? Which professor did you work with? What was the special thing did you do? And the third question is, where did you fail? Okay? That is how scary it is. Second point, don't talk about digital disruption to universities. 80% of the businesses in the world do not know how to deal with this question. The people who are hiring the products from this university don't know themselves where their disruption is going to be. So what are they going to use to do their hiring? They buy an artificial intelligence app which processes 10,000 applications. And if your attribute is not there, no chance. No chance of being hired. So if we are not beginning to think about these issues and ask about fundamental issues, what the hell are we trying to produce in our society? If we fail that, we fail in our jobs. So I don't want to deal with sign bites. I'm being very strong in issue is this because everybody wants an instant answer. And the answer is there are going to be no instant answers. It's about a process. How do we find slowly, to find the right solution for all of us? Okay? So yes, Doc, sorry.
Yeah, an example of the disruption through computing is what's called big data, which is kind of the word of the day in Silicon Valley. Big data takes a group like this and looks at things that you do and finds maybe you like ice cream, and you like ice cream, and you like ice cream. And so we get a group of people who like ice cream, so we can send them advertising. But you like poetry, and you're the only one in the group. Big data doesn't care about you. What it's doing is forcing the whole society into large correlations rather than into relationships. It's extremely destructive. And I've got friends who are in that business and they're so proud of what they're doing, but their thinking process is close to zero.
Okay, we have at least 3 questions that I can identify.
First of all, I want to congratulate you, Andrew. I read an article that you wrote about politics and quantum mechanics, and you did a pretty good job in explaining quantum mechanics. That tells us that it is possible for economies to shift, and this also that what happened. That's the new world. That's the new world. Our ability to shift. Congratulations. Now, I'm going to offer a view to answer just now that question too. From my perspective of Penang, the traditional university in Malaysia teaches the basics of what we think will give us skills for our lives. The trouble is the latency, the amount of time that skill is going to last is getting shorter and shorter. Right? When I was there in the 70s, when I graduated, it took me many, many years before I started to get outdated. By that time, I became an administrator, I became a manager. I depend on the new people coming in to fill up that gap. Now, in today's environment, first of all, the latency is very short. Sometimes to a point in Malaysia where they got outdated before they even come out of university. We ask questions like, I'm in industry, ask questions like, what is actually a quantum computer? Their answer is very simple. It's very fast. It can do all kinds of wonderful things. Then I ask, what exactly is a quantum computer? Cannot answer. Then I ask the next question. Have you heard of Schrodinger's cat? Okay? Answers, no. Now that is the fundamental philosophy of what that is. You should have to understood that before you even start. In our university, no such thing. So what happened? They get outdated very early. Now that's what's happening to the people who are now in administration. The disruption in digital technology is making administrative and management jobs become less and less relevant because they have digital assistants that improve their productivity. So what happened? You have compression. These people come in and get compressed because the other guys have nowhere to go. They retire, the machine takes over. So they can compress in the middle. So now I feel universities should be in 2 places. One is the traditional university that will keep them when they come out, fully relevant for a short time. I teach them the ability to learn continuously. Open universities are for those who have graduated. You suck these administrators out and retrain them back before they forget. You recycle them. I feel that this is what we should do in this country, and there is a very big possibility for open universities to play this role. Right? Finally, there is a difference between a teacher and an expert in content. The person who is an expert in content is not necessarily your best teacher. So there comes my point about how to attract. You attract the best researcher to make him a teacher. How are you going to make that happen? So universities also must have to attract people to do research projects that will challenge the students. And you hire teachers and mentors. Today, it's not like that. A good professor is one who has read a lot of papers to become very famous. He's a lousy teacher. So this is my point. I just wanted to bring this up, right, for discussion.
That's excellent.
Context of what I've been hearing, may I suggest that we do not forget the humanistic role and purpose of a university. This is, I think, an area which is constant. What you've been talking about, change and so on, is change. But what remains constant is an essential and fundamental purpose of university, which is to produce graduates of good character with ideals and with moral values, imbibing values like integrity, compassion, honesty, and graduates who are empathetic towards society, who believe that they have a contribution to make, some contribution to make to society, and to make the world a better place when they leave than from when they came.
For a young man, in response to that question, okay? Recently, a 19-year-old came to me for advice. He got a job in Kuala Lumpur to be a programmer. He was a misfit in high school. He went online and learned about coding himself. So, every other person in that same company is a graduate in computer science. He's the only one who is a high school graduate. And for a high school graduate in Malaysia, he got paid 2006. Last month, he was very happy. He told me he got a promotion and the pay rise. He's getting 7,000 ringgit. Okay? He has not gone to 1 day of college. Right? But the reason he came to me is because he wanted to apply to go to MIT. So I asked him, why? You already are making so much money, why do you need to go to MIT? Well, he said he wants to meet some cool people. And he wants to be exposed. Okay? There's not a single university in Malaysia or Singapore or Hong Kong that is on his radar screen. Okay? Now, let me tell you the story of, before I forget. So he has said for his to go to the United States to study, you must sit for SAT. Obviously, he got 800 for math. Obviously, he got 800 for physics. Right? But it is very frightening. Because 50 years ago, was it 50, maybe more than 50 years ago, when I applied, and when I got 800 for my math and physics, I was at 98 percentile. But his 800 for physics is only 87 percentile. And his 800 for math is only 79 percentile. Okay? Now, the universities in Malaysia and Penang better ask themselves, where do we stand? What do we want to do? Okay? Now, the opposite are two other young men in the early 20s. They both went to good universities, got their bachelor degrees. After that, they both went to different boot camps. Boot camp is an American term to train athletics, okay? So one fellow went to a boot camp in US for 3 months to learn coding because he did not want to practice whatever he learned in college. The other one went to a boot camp in Kuala Lumpur. Okay? Both in 3 months learned to be programmer, and each of them got salary of 4,000 to 5,000. So that's these two examples. I'm asking two other questions. Firstly, I think these two guys went to college to please their parents. Okay? And obviously they did not think that the university they went to, although they were good universities overseas, taught them what they wanted to do. Okay? And you already have boot camps that you only need to go to attend for 3 months and you can be a coding expert. I mean, I hope I've given you examples of digital disruption to university education. Okay?
Thank you.
Let's put it in a sense. Now we say that the child who is taught in a digital age is actually different from a child from an analog age. Let's take a child who is actually in university in 1960 where the Beatles are, and the teacher is from 1920. Again, there's evolution. So it's not digital that's actually creating disruption. It's just basically life. I mean the way that somebody in 1960 with the Beatles and long hair and free love against a teacher who is 1920 would say that that is actually something which is revolutionary and unacceptable. The same thing that we're having right now. Digital is just a means of getting more information. In the 60s, you have also means of mass newspapers. Today we have the internet, we have Netflix, but it's just a mode of change. I don't see digital being a disruption. I think evolution is the thing. And whether we are in the 1920s, 1960s, 1980s, or 2000s, or year 3000, if you don't evolve, you will just simply die. It's just the case. So I think it's very unfair to blame digital. Number two, talking about guidance, I think one of the members of the audience mentioned that the role of universities is actually more of a facilitator of guidance rather than content. I truly agree, because I believe something, we don't talk about universities. Let's compare homeschool versus regular school. What are the results? Is homeschool more inferior or more superior to regular school? We don't know that. So again, the content is the same. You still sit the same exams, and one passes, one fails. So I think some research has to be done on that. So I think role of universities, schools, colleges, kindergarten is not to provide content, but actually guidance. Now I'm a trained as an accountant. Whatever I studied way back in the 90s is actually rubbish today. It's the same for the medical profession, or any profession. So again, it's evolution. I don't blame digital. And thirdly, let me put a thing that everybody goes digital. Yes, this is digital and all that. But why is it very funny that kids these days want vinyl? We just want to chuck it in the dustbin, and now they're charging, well, that day at Popular, the Beatles album, which I bought at 9 ringgit 90 cents when I was a kid, now is 200 ringgit. So what digital revolution is that? We're going backwards. And I heard something in the BBC. I was listening to Radio 1 BBC today. Thanks to the internet, you can listen to whatever is in the UK. People are buying cassettes. Cassettes. You have got Apple Music, but they want cassettes. So I don't think it's the digital which is the disruption. It is marketing, it's evolution. So thank you.
Thank you for your statement.
To the extent that perhaps our brick and mortar notions of university may not be relevant anymore. And I think in this context, I'd like to even suggest that everybody should discuss about Khan Academy and whether what Khan Academy is proposing to students and how to educate them makes universities no longer relevant. I think you mentioned about companies using AI to judge how to employ a person, and Khan Academy says that their product will perform better before an AI than someone who comes from either MIT or Harvard. So I think there is a serious need to discuss whether you still need brick and mortar universities.
Thank you. Very, very good questions, very, very good statements. Thank you very much indeed. We can go on the whole night, but we can't do this because we all have to take a break. Now let me allow everybody here to sum up and answer some of these questions. Dr. Reddy.
I hope, is it okay?
Yeah.
I think one thing is very clear, that digital, you may interpret it as technology more probably, that is making the world very different in nature. It does not replace traditional universities, but I think the world is going to be new, more because the pace at which it is going to move. I think that's more or less the consensus. And it's not as though you cannot replace traditional universities with open universities. And more important, as I take the message broadly speaking, education is not just skill acquisition. Education requires more than skill acquisition. So therefore digitalization may in fact undermine the sources of education. So that's the type of sense. I think, in my view, the discussion has contributed as much, if not more, to the understanding of the culture. Thank you.
Thank you. I think really like to say that Open University is a promise for the future, and because of the flexibility and the movement of knowledge between disciplines, potential for that, which is not so present in the more traditional university.
Okay, I'm going to take the question that was back there about is it just evolution? To me, if you look at the banking crisis, at the problems of national security and the national security state, things like that, I think that the information world bears a tremendous responsibility for screwing things up. On the question of bricks and mortar, I think that as society gets into more trouble, we're going to need places for people to be safe, physical spaces to be safe that the internet cannot provide. And this building is a good example of a place that could make a number of people feel safe. And I think that's going to be really important as things probably fall apart.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a physicist. I was educated at the time that commercialization of universities did not exist. And I'm very grateful for that education. And since then, I've seen the universities go to commercialization and becoming more and more aware of what you said would be the essence, or the very important for university humanities, and the whole list of things that you can group under that. So so I think commercialization is the death of universities, and I think you have to really look at the relevance of universities. To a large extent come back, at least in my sense, to the old setting of the university. They were kind of elitist. It wasn't a commodity. It was not commodity education. Not everybody in society got a degree. there was a distribution of work and of thinking and of leadership.
The feedback, what I have so far from the start, or the board members so far from the start, it's not that we were telling them not to do it all. It was a discussion, and many of the things that we proposed or suggested, they have already been thinking about. So it was a very useful collaboration already, despite the fact that we've only really just met for a few hours. And lastly, we all stress that this is your university. It is a community university. It is a gift to you. And the university is really thinking of involving you all, not just the school leavers, but the secondary or much further down the line of re-educating yourself, whether it's for a second job or just a sheer satisfaction of better way of acquiring knowledge in a community fashion. So treasure.
Thank you. On that note, I'm sorry we ran out of time, but we had a wonderful briefing by the mayor on his vision for Penang. We had an excellent discussion, feedback. We said right from the beginning, we don't have all the answers. We are in the process of becoming. And we hope that Penang will evolve. We are very confident that Penang being at the geopolitical center, every beautiful part about networks is every point is a center. It's whether you make it a center or not of that network, the network. So we have opportunity because we are an open university, we are not a traditional university. We might not be able to compete with the Khan Academy. Khan Academy works on artificial intelligence, trying to solve the answers to another artificial intelligence, how to pick jobs. To me, artificial intelligence is augmented stupidity. The point is, artificial intelligence is only an algorithm trying to solve what the programmer or designer to solve a particular problem. It doesn't solve all problems. People who fly by the black box die by the black box. That is the humanity that we need to teach our students, right? We need to understand that the world is much bigger than all of us, and we need to work together to find our way in a very uncertain, complex world. On that note, I want to thank all of you for making this evening, I personally think, is a success. And, let's start this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanstri, for moderating the public forum today. Please be seated. The event is yet to finish. I'm really sorry. So, before we end, we would like to thank our distinguished panel speakers with a simple token of appreciation from Wawasan Open University. It is now my great pleasure to invite Yang Berbahagia, Tanstri Dr. Kosukun, Chairman of the Board of Governors, to do the honors. Please welcome Tanstri. We shall now proceed with the souvenir presentation to our panel speakers. Professor Stephen Oppenheimer.
Thank you very much for coming. Let me come here and hand it to me.
Dr. Douglas Carmichael. Dr. Yaga Venugopal Reddy. Dr. Shu Manfai. Finally, Mr. Jan Vuta Vaspinder. chemistry.com.